So, what do you get when you have a great friend, a passion for real estate, and a canceled flight out of Denver? You get a video all about what they're doing with rental leasing in Denver and what our smaller markets can learn from this. Stay tuned. I'm Jennifer Rowlands, landlord, educator, advocate, and broker at One Focus Property Management. So I told you this video was born out of a great friend, my passion for real estate, and a canceled flight. So what's the story? Well, my very dear friend Lachelle just got an amazing new job in Denver, Colorado. So she's relocating from Williamsport and going to be settling there. But she's very financially savvy. So she's going to be renting her Pennsylvania home through my company, One Focus Property Management. And we're going to be taking advantage of all the leverage and tax benefits she has in building that equity. It's a really smart idea. Now, as her property manager and good friend, I went out to Denver to help her look for her new housing, which she'll be renting. When American Airlines canceled my flight, I got a whole extra day to do a really thorough job. You know, Denver is the 9th fastest growing city in the United States. So what's happening there really is on the forefront, but it is coming to these smaller markets. It is going to trickle down to us, and we really should be looking ahead to stay ahead of the curve. The first thing I saw that was different when I visited Denver and saw their rental properties was that the rents were changing daily. So when you visit a property, you're provided a quote and you're told that that rent quote is good for 24 to 48 hours, depending on the property. And I was really surprised at this. And then I realized, well, of course, this is what's called dynamic pricing. And we see that with flights and hotels every day. We know that those prices change depending on how much they've sold and what sort of business they're expecting. So now investors are using different kinds of data companies who are collecting, analyzing, and distributing that information. They're paying for that information to start to work into their rent prices. But they're not just using the different kinds of supply and demand factors that they see in the market. They're also, very interestingly, balancing their rent rolls. So what that means is they're trying to work with the seasonality of their business and how their staff and whatnot can keep up. So they don't want all their leases ending in one season. That would be inconvenient and bad for the business. So what you'll see is, depending on how many notices to vacate they've received or how many leases they've made for a certain time period, you'll see those rents change as well. And tenants are presented not with just a 12-month lease option, but with options for shorter or longer leases. And we often think that the longer the lease, the lower the rent. Well, that wasn't necessarily true. In fact, sometimes the higher the lease term, the higher the rent. So it really depends on the property. And what was interesting is that they were using all this different data to make as good decisions as possible. So the key takeaway to this lesson is that when you're pricing your rental property, you obviously have to consider market factors, supply and demand, but you also should be considering your own business factors. So that might be whether or not you have other leases ending at that time, whether that's a convenient time for you to be renegotiating or releasing the property. Make sure to consider it all and structure lease offers that create as much win for all parties as possible. So that might mean offering shorter or longer than a year term lease. The second thing I learned visiting rental properties in Denver is that amenities are huge. So these properties are offering every kind of amenity under the sun: social events, workout classes, dog spas, guest suites, anything you can imagine they're offering. And that's amazing. But what's interesting is that tenants are starting to see those amenities as part of the rental package and a reason why they might prefer renting over owning. And so we can't just write off amenities as something they do in big fancy cities. It's in fact one leg up rentals have over owning for properties, and our smaller markets can't ignore these trends. Our tenants are living in these larger markets now. They're visiting these larger markets. They have these expectations. And so while we might not be able to compete with glitzy spas and bars in our buildings, we certainly can offer service and convenience. So the takeaway on this is that we have to consider what qualified tenants are expecting and how are we going to meet those expectations. Again, it doesn't have to be a one-to-one match to what other markets are doing, but we do need to think outside the box and find out ways that we can meet their expectations. The third thing I noticed that was different in Denver was that controlled access is the name of the game. So there's a lot of different access points in buildings that tenants need to be able to pass through. And so all of them are, of course, locked. But they're giving tenants convenient ways to access these points. So it could be a code, it could be a fob that they carry on their keychain, or it could be an app on a smartphone. All are different convenient ways where they can be moving to and fro. Another part of this controlled access problem is package delivery. Package delivery is an increasingly large part of the qualified tenant's experience. And managing that either in a single family home or in a larger building with multiple units could be challenging. And they're solving those problems with a lot of technology out there in Denver. And for qualified tenants, this is absolutely a must because having their spaces or possessions unprotected isn't going to work for them. The takeaway is that we need to prioritize security and convenience for our tenants. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to mean a full-scale smart home solution, but it will likely have some electronic security features. I haven't had the experience of moving to a new city and looking for a rental property in quite some time. In fact, the last time I did this, I used the apartment guide, that little magazine you get in the rack at the grocery store. Now, this time when we went to Denver, we didn't use any publications like that, but we did use our smartphones and the internet. And wow, big lesson. So if you are like me and haven't done this in a while, you probably don't understand just how important your business listing is. And so it's really important that your business listing on Google and your rental property listings be incredibly attractive, really complete with information, or you will lose business. Qualified tenants are using the internet to search for their next rental property pretty exclusively. I know I've learned so much that there's going to be several changes coming at One Focus to better position our online presence. The key takeaway on this is that if you're interested in leasing to qualified tenants, you need to be in front of them where they're looking. They are using the internet and you need to look amazing on the internet. If you're not able to do that, there are professionals and services that'll help you with this, but the bottom line is it does deserve your attention. I know so many of you aren't really interested in the specifics of the Denver rental market, and honestly, neither am I, but I am interested in what the biggest investors are doing around the country. And so while I'm not specifically interested in Denver, these key takeaways are really critical to looking ahead in our smaller markets and seeing what's coming. How can we be more proactive, and how can we meet these qualified tenants who've lived various places? How can we meet their expectations in just a bit of a different way? I love making these videos. I hope you enjoy them too. Don't forget to subscribe. We also have a Facebook group. The link's in the description. It's just for Pennsylvania landlords, a place for you to get support and answers when sometimes you can't get them anywhere else. Have a great day.